Hello and welcome to a Building Smart webinar. This webinar is part of the Building Smart Virtual Summit for Spring 2022. Thank you for joining. My name is Sheila Karailam and I will be your moderator today. Today's webinar is titled Global Activity with an Analysing and Mapping Workshop. Our speakers today are Nick Nisbet, who is Director at AEC3 Limited and Vice Chair for Building Smart UK and Ireland. We also have Masaki Muto, who is Chief Research Engineer at the Building Research Institute in Japan. And we have Miguel Azenha, who is Assistant Professor at University of Minho. And we also have Ali Ismail, who is a BIM expert at Dubai Municipality. This webinar is scheduled to last for approximately 2 hours with a short Q&A and a workshop session at the end. The webinar is being recorded and will be made available in the replay section of the event within 24 hours. Before I hand over to our speakers, I would like to remind you that your microphones will remain muted for the duration of this webinar. If you do have any questions or wish to make comments, please use the session-specific chat box in the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. I would also like to bring your attention that Building Smart is committed to ensuring that participation in the development of standards is unrestricted and the process for their adoption is transparent. And standards that are developed do not favour any particular provider and are open, non-binding and accessible to all. Please take note of our antitrust code of conduct, which is up on the screen. And on that note, I would like to hand over to Nick.
Welcome, everyone. This is our third session for the regulatory room. And I'm very pleased to say we have three distinguished and knowledgeable speakers. What we like to do at these summits is to get feedback and information about what is happening around the globe, and the regulatory room is trying to develop a register of activities, particularly as there is progress made in the regulatory area out of academic work, and as it becomes pilot projects and commercial projects, then it becomes increasingly important to learn and understand what is going on around the world. Just before we start, the regulatory room is a forum for discussing the role of open standards in the relationship between regulators and our industry. And one of the things that we try and do is to track where proposals are on a sort of maturity matrix or cube here. And when we come to the discussion, it might be interesting to try and place the presentations we've seen and any other developments people want to talk about on three scales. And the ones that we've used is a scale that goes from low-hanging fruits, the things that are easily achievable, to more advanced use of BIM and then long-term ambitions. We've also used a scale that says that there is research, there's pilot projects, and there's full implementation. And the third scale we've used goes from visual use of building information modeling to information flows to code checking. So we'll come back to this after we've had the presentations. We've asked each of the speakers to speak for about 15 or 20 minutes. We will like to keep questions to the end of the three presentations so that we can compare and contrast and be aware of different developments before getting into any detail. So I'd like to invite Masaki Muto, Chief Research Engineer at the Building Research Institute in Japan and a steering committee, a regulatory room steering committee member, to take over the screen and present on developments in Japan.
Thank you for introducing me and Nick. And I'm Masaki Muto. I'm buildingSMART Japan chapters and Building Research Institute Japan. So in this presentation, it's the effort to apply the confirmation in Japan and the effort of the digital confirmation application working group at buildingSMART Japan. So next. This is today's agenda. I'd like to talk about these 4 things. First of all, I'd like to talk about the result of my research on the digitization and digitalization of building confirmation in Japan as a background of Japanese BIM circumstances. This slide shows the conflict that can occur between applicant and reviewers when introducing BIM to the building permit processes. It is pointed out in the BSI e-submission common guideline that in the early stage of implementation, there is often a lack of trust in BIM on the part of the reviewers, which lead to increased demand on the part of the participant. Overcoming this problem will be a breakthrough in the implementation of the BIM process. This slide shows a policy on electronic application and BIM for construction in Japan. In the Cabinet Secretariat's action plan for growth strategies, the goal is for designated confirmation and inspection bodies and specified administrative agencies to support the electronic application of building confirmation in order to promote the use of BIM by FY 2023. Dealing with electronic application requires the digitization or digitalization of the processes. But there are 2 words for digitization or digitalization, and we need to check what they mean. The first is digitization, which refers to the digital transformation of analog information and processes, such as paperless and introduction of RPA. The second, digitalization, which is the transformation of business models and user experiences. Digitalization is an improvement of traditional processes, so it is trustworthy. But digitalization involves the transformation, so it tends to cause the reaction that is untrustworthy. This is discussion of the digitization or digitalization of building confirmation in Japan. BIM building confirmation with BIM model data as a source of information are defined step 1 plus with confirmation and by drawing images. Step 2 plus with confirmation by visual modeling views, and step 3 minus or step 3 with confirmation by calculations. This means that according to the BSI guidelines, step 1 plus is low-hanging fruit, step 2 plus is advanced BIM, and step 3 minus or step 3 is long-term ambitious. This term of digitization or digitalization, step 1 plus and step 2 plus are digitization, step 2 plus, step 3 minus, and step 3 are digitalization. According to the previous slide, the great gap will be there in the process of considering step 2 plus and this actual situation. The major issues are shown in this slide. The technical aspects are as follows. Can model viewing be a substitute for paper-based building confirmation processes? Especially, is it possible to express the designer's expression intention on building confirmation without excess or deficiency in the model view? Is it possible to is it possible to archive to the beam confirmation data for long term as contrasted with paper document archive? For example, long-term authenticity, long-term reliability. The institutional aspects as follows. Is it possible to prepare machine-readable legal document? Who will bear the increased cost? How to ensure the BIM literacy required for building confirmation? Next, I'd like to introduce the reference cases. First of all, it's a case of Takenaka Corporation. Takenaka Corporation worked on IFC under the policy of open beam. In both cases, the type of building is office, and the actual project was done between 2020 and 2021. The effort is this project is rated step 3- or BRI development steps or Muto scale. And the activity classification matrix, which is an indicator of BSI, evaluates the project as X2, Y3, Z3, and the open beam level as level 2. These are results of this trial verification. In the upper left is a list of inspection items using IFC for the legal compliance check. The upper right shows the confirmation flow, and lower figure is an image of open BIM confirmation. In this trial, the open beam confirmation was conducted in addition to the conventional confirmation based on paper document. So time-consuming work was occurred. However, it became clear that if the open BIM confirmation could be fully conducted, the work could be reduced by approximately 30%. Here is a summary of the Takenaka Corporation's trial. In order to develop this achievement in the future, it is necessary to understand step 3-, the merit of using IFC building confirmation, and to treat IFC data itself as authentic data equivalent to conventional paper document. On the other hand, it is necessary to build a consensus in the architectural community on how IFC data can be used to meet the long-term preservation requirement of 15 years for application document in Japan, and how to do that. The next is case of Shimizu Corporation. Shimizu Corporation project was hospital construction, an actual project that conducted between 2020 and 2021. Shimizu Corporation has considered the IFC approach in the past, but there were still many issues to be addressed at that time, so the decision was made to use the BIM authoring software environment for this trial with a view to using IFC. In this trial, the BIM authoring software and VPL were used to determine legal compliance, and the BRI development step, or the Muto scale 3- was achieved. The project was rated X3 and Y3 and Z3 on the activity classification matrix, an indicator of BSI, and level 1 on the open beam level. This is a VPL process in BIM building confirmation. In this method, the attributes for the building confirmation are taken from the BIM model, imported into VTL to checked by programming. The reason for using VTL here is the emphasis on visualization and repeatability. The process of legal compliance cannot be trusted unless it is understood not only by designers who created it, but also by the reviewers who use it. It is also important to ensure that the same process used by the designers can be replicated by the reviewer. For this reason, in this project, Shimizu Corporation extracted the item that could be compliant with the law using BIM and described for the confirmation process in VTL, which was used as an confirmation support. In this method, the component required for legal compliance and their decisions are extracted and combined, and used VTL to determine the result as shown upper figure. The lower three figures are example of its utilization. On particular interest is the consideration of lightning rod on the far right. This is a visual representation of whether or not the building is within the protection zone of the lightning rod. This is a matter that would be difficult to represent and judge with ordinary 2D drawings, but by using BIM data, it is highly visible and easy to judge. Finally, I'd like to talk about the effort of the Digital Confirmation Application Working Group, or BSJ. At the Autumn Virtual Summit in 2020, Mr. Kensuke Yasui, as a representative of our working group, announced that we are considering defining regulatory information that should be observed by regulations and exporting it in IFC. This is an illustration of regulatory information that would be like to define in the IFC that we introduced at that time. Discussion is ongoing, and here are some of the things we are discussing. We believe that defining RIM in IFC, which represents a model of the regulatory information of a planned building, will greatly contribute to the internationalization of building projects. Therefore, in order to define the RIM, the working group for digital permit application was defined two types regulatory information. The first regulation requirement model, RRM, which model the regulations themselves. And the second, regulation approval models, RAM, which model what has been planned and approved. In Japan, the type of the size limit of buildings on site are regulated according to the use classification of the site. This size limit is based on the area of site. Therefore, we are trying to extract the necessary information on area of site or floor area of building, etc., which is the basis on whether a building is buildable or not. The decision is largely based on the building to land ratio and the floor area ratio. But in the process of arriving at this decision, there are a particular use that are limited to the exclude from total area. Our working group is currently investigating how to give the attribute necessary for this distinction. Our working are examining the application for confirmation using IFC, referring to reference cases introduced earlier. This figure shows an image of an approach to implementing regulatory information model. Our working group is trying to define the concept of legal information based on the information that can be handled in BIM authoring software. Through the case of the Takenaka Corporation, which is an example of legally property expression and their usage. The case of Shimizu Corporation, which is an example for a definition of properties and viewers used for automatic code check using BPF, and other example and working group members finding and discussions. From now, based on the cases and the studies I showed earlier, etc., we are planning to create an IDM to express the necessary information organized by IOC for the area, and to define an MVD for a building confirmation by IOC. In order to confirm whether the data can be extracted reliability based on the MVD, BSA will conduct the IFC certification on RIM. After that, we believe that it is be possible to implementation the systems. If this can be established about the area first, we plan to continue to add more items by developing MVDs. So far, I prepared that presentation at the last summit. Then I'd like to talk about the progress of the study of spatial matter. I mentioned at the beginning, the flow is digitalization, and digital transformation in this presentation. The working group has been working on the 3 phases along the flow of digitalization. Sorry. The definition is shown in the figure below. The phase 1 is the establishment of information transmission as digitization. Phase 2 is the introduction to calculation logics as digitalization. And phase 3 is digital transformation, autocode checking by ISC. Our study is executing to increase the difficulty in stages of phase. Phase 1 and phase 2 are themes we are currently working on. This table provides a specific consideration for a legal compliance in the spatial area. Due to the time considerations, detailed expression is not possible. We hope that you review the handnote or later, or watch the video to see what we are talking about. The result of the study will be used to update the MVD for building confirmation. This is the ER diagram for phase 1 and phase 2 under consideration. Allow mixed use of IOC and PDF. In the future, our goal is to make it phase 3, which does not involve PDF. Finally, our goal is to solve the no-belief problem of BIM building certification. To achieve this, we need to plan to 2 actual roles, such as to develop the relevant object and to resolve them in a step-by-step manner to meet the difficulties. The outcome of software implementation, for which we believe a pure IOC solution must be provided. Thank you for attention.
Thank you, Masaki. That's a very good overview, and good to see the matrix being used to help make those plans and explain those plans. So thank you very much. Um, I'd now like to invite Miguel to share his screen and update us from Portugal.
Thank you very much, first of all, for the opportunity of being here, and thank you, buildingSMART, for all the initiatives that have been done throughout all these years that are influencing so well the way the industry is going on this direction. So, my name is Miguel Azenha from Portugal, University of Minho, and I'm here to communicate the work that is being led together by me and my colleague José Granja, who is a researcher also on the University of Minho, and we are working together with two particular municipalities, which are the Lisbon, which I think doesn't need introduction, and the township of Vila Nova de Gaia, which is the town very near Porto in the north of Portugal. So we are working together with these two municipalities, with several technicians there, and also with a set of past master students and current PhD students and master students as well. So we have been very much engaged in this process in the past few years to wonder how digital building permits could take place. So we have been working on this in several aspects. One of them is firstly regarding how municipalities could use BIM in their work. So we are involved in our national committee for BIM normalization, and we were a part of a very important document that has been issued, roughly speaking, almost 2 years ago, about how BIM can be used in municipalities, where we try to bring to municipalities information on what are the BIM uses that they might come into. We did this in true respect for the initiatives of ISO and CEN and our national IPQ institution for standards. And we did this in true connection to open formats, in which I don't need to speak much about here. And also we did this also because there's a very, very big opportunity in Portugal, and I think this happens all around the world, is that municipalities are having their own style of permitting according to each place. So we have 308 municipalities in our country and 308 styles of submitting projects for permits, which is a mess. And our technicians, so our architects and engineers, just feel overwhelmed, because if you drive 20 kilometers away, you literally have a different set of requirements. So this is crazy, and we are trying to use BIM as an opportunity to homogenize procedures. So, of course, as I mentioned before, we are looking at the wide spectrum of things that municipalities can do with BIM, but we are only, and this presentation is only focused on construction and the use licensing, so the digital building permitting. But of course, there's so much more we are trying to engage municipalities to do. So with this, the problem that has been identified is clear. So we know that the inefficiency of the building permitting situation is a global problem. It's not only ours in Portugal, but we are definitely one of the countries with a lot of problems. The problem is time and money, basically, and the time involved represents, according to our Portuguese Investors Association, we have been in contact with them, the investors for real estate. They say that time is representing a very big damage to their capacity to promote investments. There's a very big degree of uncertainty, and so this damages investment. It damages the economy, and then at the same time, it's not the municipalities that are the big bad wolf. So the municipalities are actually struggling. They have too many things to analyze. They deal with the fact that they are public institutions. They cannot just open a box of money and make things happen immediately. So processes are slow. The number of people available are not many, and by not being many, they do the best they can, and still processes are delayed. So what we want to intervene, of course, is making the processes more easy for these particular people, and they can actually contribute to a better streamlining. And of course, there's also something extremely important, and in our contacts with municipalities, this was clear, is that many times we are incorrectly charging taxes to the people that should be paying the taxes, because, for example, there was an area that was misdeclared. And so if this happens, then everyone is being damaged. So everyone, provided that someone is not paying what they should be. So for this, I think there's a very big problem that needs to be addressed. And fortunately, there's an opportunity. So the opportunity in our case is BIM. In such a conference as one promoted by buildingSMART, I don't need to explain why BIM is so amazing and so nice. And fortunately, in our country, even though there's no national mandate to adopt BIM by the government yet, we notice that the industry is leveraging this, and the owners are also leveraging this by requiring BIM because they know its advantages for them. So as construction owners or investors are requiring BIM, then it makes the process easier. At the same time, we are, as members of the European Union, we are receiving several initiatives at the European level that are assisting us. We are in the part of the European Network for Digital Building Permits. For those that don't know, I strongly encourage that you should belong. It's a very good network, neatly managed, where we are joining efforts together to know more and to learn more about the digital building permits, of course, with open formats. And recently there was a funding of an European project with something like 5 million euro, in which we are included, which is the Czech project managed by TU Delft. And the institutions that are represented in this presentation are a part of this project, which will start in October. So we are really looking nicely for the prospects for the future. So another opportunity is we know, and I think I'm looking forward to the next presentation also about the Dubai municipality. There are several pilot projects that are already at a very good technology advancement level that we can leverage on, but we acknowledge that everything in the world is also under development. So nobody yet still has the full process completely digitized, at least unless we get a surprise in the next presentation. It's not something that we can say it's general in a country. Okay, so this is our perception. Of course, the interoperability is central here. So we are not only looking at the developments from buildingSMART, but also from OGC, because there's a connection that we need between the level of the building and the level of the municipality as a whole, and the permitting process should take that into account. And the standardization, we have the conditions now with ISO 19650, with in our country with the European Commission providing European directives towards BIM and towards the digitalization of and modernization of these processes. Of course, we are involved in CEN initiatives, which is the European Agency for Normalization, and of course in our national agency for normalization. So all of these are aligned together in the effort that I'm communicating you. So what did we do? So one of the first things we wanted to do was to analyze the current regulations, because if you want to implement digital building permitting, we cannot start to dream that we are changing the regulations first and then making them digital afterwards because they are so nice to become digital. So our approach is to look at the world as it is today and see how can BIM be useful. So what we did was we picked up two of the most important regulations, which is the Municipal Master Plan, which is the PDM, and the Municipal Regulation on Urbanization and Building, which is the RMUE, according to our Portuguese language acronyms. And we picked up these two documents that are really central to the process of digital building permitting in Portugal. And we looked at the documents from Lisbon and Vila Nova de Gaia, which are actually different. So they have the same nature, but they are different, and we analyzed them. And we came to a very important number that I'm showing into the next slide, which is roughly about 70%. This 70% is a golden number that we are clinging to. So what we found is that from the entire set of 1,600 provisional clauses, so we have clauses that say you must respect this and you must respect that. And we reached the conclusion that more than 70%, precisely 72% of these clauses, we can represent them, we can verify them with very simple ways, by measuring minimum area, maximum distance between this and that. If area is bigger than this, then verify that. So there's a very big number of things that we can apply with what we would call simply a model checker. Okay, so the other 28% is what we call them artificial intelligence. And I mean artificial intelligence because it's dependent on human judgment, I would say. So let's see. We have several rules in our regulations that say if the building is well integrated into the surroundings, it can be approved that the height can be somewhat higher than the other buildings. Neither well integrated is well defined, neither somewhat higher is well defined in the regulations. So this is something that different technicians at the town hall approving or issuing the permit will have different opinions. And this is truly something that we probably don't want to automate. So our investment is going towards the 70%. And on the others, we are just using BIM to assist the process, not to replace. And so what we are proposing is this Lima platform. So it's in Portuguese, Licenciamento Municipal Automatizado, or assisted or automatic municipality licensing. And we have 4 main cornerstones. The first one, we are going to be fully open source. We are not yet available online, but we are in the process of developing. I will show you some screenshots of the platform we have working, and it will be available for everyone, not only in our country, but worldwide. It should have no cost for municipalities or applicants. So as it's open source, it will just be there available for everyone. So whoever wants to use it just implements it. So municipalities should be able to implement it in their own servers and adapt it as they want. And the applicants, for example, an applicant in a workflow that I will show next, it's a workflow where you submit your project and you will get an instant feedback regardless of the real submission to the municipality. There will be a platform for pre-checking, and this should be free as well. We are doing it 100% customizable, so we'll have some set of high-level rules that the municipalities can edit even if they don't know programming, so they can adapt to their own regulations and to the fact that their regulations may change through time. And finally, and very, very important, we want this to have very, very low impact on the applicants. So we don't want people to feel, hey, I have to submit this to the municipality, so now my modeling rules are crazy. I have to respect these crazy names. I have to respect this crazy order of things. No, we want to put this aligned with the regulations that we are issuing in Europe and in Portugal in particular for the the architects and engineers to do their own designs in BIM. So the workflow that we are considering is this one. From the point of view of the applicant, and next I will speak on the point of view of the municipality. So the applicant will receive the CTGML files from the town where he can integrate the BIM model in, and he will receive modeling requirements so that the BIM model is created according to some rules. Of course, by default, everything is made in IFC, so we are not using anything proprietary. It doesn't exist for us, literally. And then there will be the rules checking that the applicant can do by uploading the project to the platform. So this is not a verification by the municipality, it's just using the platform to get an instant insight into the problems he may run into. And then if it's compliant, okay, it's ready to be submitted. If it's not compliant, then it just goes back and the person handling the modeling can just upgrade or change the project so that it becomes compliant. Sometimes, if it's not compliant, not a problem, you may submit it anyway, but you will provide some evidence of the reason why you think, even though it's not compliant, the project should be approved. Maybe sometimes it's just a 0.1 millimeter difference, and you say, this is just a numerical thing, let's not delve into that. So then on the municipality workflow, the municipality would receive from the applicant the BIM model in IFC, and then it just goes, the technician of the municipality that does the verification will do semi-automated verifications. I will show a couple of screenshots later, and then he or she will make analysis results with a communication through the BCF format towards the applicant. Of course, in the workflow of the applicant, I didn't show this, but the applicant will receive later on BCF files, which we are studying still how to authenticate them digitally so that they have the force of law, if you understand what I mean. They are legally binding. And so at the end, this would be a process that would be relatively simple from the practical point of view. And we are dialoguing with our agencies for the platforms for documentation management to make this actually something that embeds into the current procedures of municipalities. So we are just adding an IFC to the process and the BCF. So this is a screenshot of what we are already doing. So we are programming this. Of course, it's a web platform. In this case, we believe in the software being hosted in the municipality, and then it's coded in a PHP and JavaScript together with HTML, of course, and then we are using some open platforms like the SEO kit to do our graphical interface, and but it's open, so nobody has to pay to use this if it's non-commercial. And then in the end, this becomes available to whoever wants to test it in the future. We are opening this also outside. So the platform then relies on some Python code behind it to make the verifications using IFC OpenShell, by the way. So this is just one screenshot. And of course, the platform then makes variations of according to the verification of what you are seeing and why, and then how you can act on that to create the BCFs. So of course, in some times you will have plan views, other times you will have three-dimensional views. And one of the most recent things we did, even though it's not that appealing what I'm showing on screen, is the preparation of some reports that are mandatory in Portugal, which is some table with areas and other aspects of the project, and some information that is necessary for our Institute of Statistics. And this is being done already automatically, even though we didn't do the interface we didn't do the interface yet, and we are working on the interface, so that apart from already doing some verifications, we are still starting. We are already also doing the preparation of some formally necessary documentation that would be created from the BIM model. And of course, at the same time, we are working on interface ways for the municipalities to operate here. And the interesting thing, and I'm almost finishing, is the fact that by working together with the municipalities to develop this, we know that this is being validated by those who finally will use it. So there are many advantages, and I think I mentioned most of them. So we are faster, you will manage your expectations better, taxes will be better collected, and also to motivate people, merit badges or things like that, to make sure that this will be advantages also. Not only you get the advantage from using BIM, but also you will be recognized. And the project that I mentioned, the Czech project, is starting, and we will do also many things that are complementary to what I stated, and try to make an umbrella so that within the European Union, or even throughout the world, but first thinking about Europe, we can get something that will assist the frameworks throughout the entire continent. And that's it. Sorry, I was just rushing to keep my 15 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. That's very interesting, and not interesting also to see that BCF is part of your concept. So that's quite exciting, and so on. I'd now like to invite Ali Ismail to share the screen and update us from Dubai.
So thank you very much for inviting us again in this summit to present about update about Dubai BIM standard and BIM e-submission platform. It's a pleasure for us. I will start my presentation by saying a few words about myself. Actually, I will not waste too time, but some of you maybe don't know me. So I'm working as BIM expert and project manager at Dubai Municipality, and helping by managing the buildingSMART chapter. And I'm the founder of the Open BIM data model server and online viewer IFC web server. I always welcoming contact with other people who are working on the BIM, and especially in the regulation team or research academic papers. So through this QR, you can reach me and get a list of my previous published papers. I have been asked by Mr. Nick to focus on my presentation today on three topics: the role of open standard regarding how we are looking, or our vision in Dubai, and the approach that we are following. and how the regulators, or what we call them in Dubai municipality, the building permit engineers and the inspection engineers, are interacting with the platform, and how the applicant, in our case, are the contractors and consultant, in addition to the NOC authorities partner, interact with each other, and some insight about how we plan to develop the platform and the BIM standard in the future. Actually, to avoid repeating something has been already presented by buildingSMART or other event from last year, just for reference, I will keep this slide for people who watch the recording, maybe, or for you if you would like to take the QR code. This is two presentation where we presented in general about the Dubai BIM Roadmap project. We talk in general about BIM adoption in Dubai and the history of BIM adoption, and how we plan to develop the BIM standards last year, and presented some result. At that time, we showed the platform only as I remember, as some screenshot and some basic ideas about it. And today, I hope that I will have maybe few minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes maximum, to show some live demo, so you have a better idea how the platform work. So to summarize the rule of the open standard, so basically we are aligned with buildingSMART international standard, IFC, MVD, and BIM collaboration format, BCF. Our BIM standard has been built from scratch with alignment with the ISO 19650, so terminology and the concept of data exchange and so on. So we did our best to be aligned with them, and we are mandating submitting of BIM model in IFC format. So this means we don't follow the concept of accepting native or commercial native format. We assume that the consultant has the freedom to use any software as long as he can give us the output in IFC format according to our standard. As you know, we have different schemas. IFC 2x3 is still more commonly used, and for previous projects. So we decided actually that for a new project, IFC4 should be used, and for all the projects which we would like to convert them to GIS information, or to integrate them with our vision for building the digital twin, we can accept IFC 2x3 or IFC4. The collaboration and exchanging the result of the automated code compliance check happening using the BIM collaboration format. So this is generally the rule of standard. For GIS at moment, we are using Esri product, so we don't use any OGC like CTGML standard. But I will say a few words at the end that we are planning to also in parallel to work on OpenBIM and OpenGIS integration. This slide show in semantic way or simplified way how is the interaction, or which functionalities are divided between the consultant and contractor, the end user, and the building permit engineers or NOC partner for non-objection certificate. So basically, Dubai municipality has a very modern and very advanced building permit system. We see it on the top with the red color, but it has no BIM at all, because as the previous speakers talk, that we are accepting at moment TWF or PDF or CAD drawing in general. So there is no support to BIM. And at the same point, we don't want to have a big impact as well. So we want also to integrate BIM gradually, and to provide it at the beginning as a self-checking service and as an automation tool to minimize the manual work for the building permit engineers by replacing manual checking of building regulation by automated one, and also minimizing the time for the consultant who has at moment in our current system to input all information about the building or the project manually. We called it building card. This will be automatically extracted from the BIM model when the BIM standard is applied. So we see that's why we put two systems, like BIM e-submission platform. It focuses on the 3D and BIM, domain. And the building permit system is the bigger system. It's much more complex. It has a lot of other function, payment, exceptions, having all kind of different building permit application, not only for a new building, modification, self-decor, etc. So we didn't want to reinvent everything, and we didn't want to change or to have a big impact. So actually we see on the left side that the contractor actually can use the BIM platform to start by downloading GIS to BIM, what is actually similar to Mr. Miguel said that in Portugal, they started by providing the consultant with city GML file. In our case, we build a service which provide the consultant with BIM compatible information, because we assume that not all consultant will be maybe capable of dealing with the city GML or the OGC standards file. So we convert the context of the building, like the parcel ID, the substations, the underground networking, etc., all possible information or neighborhood building to two format: CAD, which is DXF, a little bit maybe legacy format, still but useful, and IFC. It is a little bit experimental now to convert IFC to GIS context information to IFC. I show some slide. And after that, he download, of course, the BIM template according to the preferred software. So we are providing Revit template, ArchiCAD template, Bentley template. We plan maybe to add more template when the BIM authoring software vendors are interested to provide such template. And he can then start by modeling and following the standard. And after that, he submit the model in IFC. So after submitting the model, he can review the model using the online viewer or using virtual reality viewer. He can check visually the setback regulations and also download the result coming from the checker to correct them in BIM collaboration format, of course. And he can check also the information which are extracted automatically from the BIM model and the building card, if they are full, if they are correct, etc. And he should go through a self-checking loop to correct any fatal problems he think it should be updated or corrected, until he is satisfied by re-uploading the BIM model many times. And after that, he released the model for reviewing by the building permit engineer. Now, on the other side, on the right side, the permit engineer can, of course, now at this moment review the BIM model again inside the viewer, inside the VR, and he can assign which rules should be applied to that building. Of course, the consultant, he specify at the beginning the type of the building, so there are a set of default rules which will be assigned, but we give the permit engineer the freedom to remove or add additional rules. And he can also check the result of the checker. He can download the IFC model to open them in desktop application if the model are huge or very complex to be deal using the online viewer. And he can also check and download the building card, and this information will be integrated, of course, with other system. During the building permit process, or maybe later during the construction phase, there is a collaboration between the end users and the permit and inspection engineers that both sides can create general issues like collaboration module using BIM collaboration format to ask for information or ask for correction or explain some aspects. So we assuming that the platform can use also as a collaboration platform. Of course, the permit engineers with some training can himself add more rules or add more filters or visualization rules, etc. And at the end, two systems, the BIM e-submission platform is integrated internally using API and web services with the GIS data bank or databases or services, and with the building permit system in order to make the result of automated code checking and the building card integrated with the building permit system. So this is in general how is that this our approach. We have two systems. They are providing different functionalities, and of course, in the long term, the two systems will merge into one system without having these two separation. For the consultant, the process for creating a project and uploading the model is very straightforward. So as I said, from step one, he starts by downloading the BIM e-submission template. He adds the project information attribute, and he used the GIS to BIM information provided by the municipality. And after finishing the modeling, he exports the model in IFC. And we provide for most software like Revit or others shared parameters, mapping files, options for the exporter to make this process straightforward. And also we guide him through the process of geolocating the model. To reduce the upload time, he should zip the files different. He can include one or more discipline model in one zip file and upload it to the platform. So this is in general the process. If we think about the integration or what the building permit engineer do up the point when the consultant released the model for the review, as we said, he will review the model using the 3D viewer. He will run the compliance check if it was not saved by the consultant himself. He generates the compliance report, notify the consultant for which rules he should be fixed. He can give him some tolerance or allow some warning or not very important rules to be ignored. And he asked the consultant for revision. The revision should be done by the consultant, and they can, during this time, also collaborate with this issue management module using BIM collaboration format until the model is correct, the information in the building card is complete, and the model is geolocated. The model is compatible with our BIM to GIS converter, so we can, after the permitting of that project, take it from the BIM world to the GIS world and convert it to the GIS compatible data structure. And at the end, the building permit engineer should approve or for some reason reject the project. So this is in general simplified process. I don't know how many minutes I have, like just to figure out if I want to do a live demo, what I should focus on.
Well, yes, please go ahead. I think
So
this is exciting.
So the platform is available online. So if you go to bim.geodubai.ae, this is the URL of the platform. You will get access to many documents which will help you to understand how BIM is implemented or our approach in Dubai. So just to show you, if you go to the platform, I will log out, or no necessary to log out, but if you go to the download, you will see that the BIM standard document are available for download. The Dubai building code, which is recently released, and now it is uniforming and harmonizing all other previous and solving the problem of jungle of codes which we had previously. So now in Dubai we have a unified one single building code, like 800 pages with cross-referencing for 100 of other standard. You know this problem for sure. And we have other documents like BIM roadmap, the BIM template for Revit and other software, and also a step-by-step BIM e-submission guideline document. Actually, testing and the evaluation and accessing the platform is limited to the registered consultant and contractor in Dubai. But at this phase, we are open for any collaboration for any people who would like to give us feedback or to collaborate with us. So just contact me, and I will allow you to or enable you to have access to the platform. Of course, I will not have time to explain in step by step, because then I have to log in and log out in different rules of user to show the whole platform. But I will just try to show you some how just to have a feel how the platform look like and how it works. So now I'm logging in as a super admin, so I can actually do anything. But we will assume here that the consultant has already created a project and he selected a multi-story project, and he put the parcel ID for that project. So we can see out of the box now the location of the parcel ID. We can see surrounding buildings, little bit, maybe the layer is not very well, the color. And he can use even the reference point, this point here, for referencing the geo model if he is not willing or don't want to use the GIS to BIM. If he decided from the beginning to download GIS to BIM, so actually we provide him with a data set of information, and this data set here I'm showing the zip file content. It includes some IFC file which showing the building, the border of the whole community, the parcels in that area, and some other GIS layers, electronic, water, etc. And we provide as well different layers in DXF format. And all this information, either the IFC model or DXF, are geo-referenced. So actually, if we open this model here in the BIM Collab Zoom, and we add all these model, we can see here that we start, at least as I said, we need to improve this a little bit to extrude the building with the real height, etc., and doing some improving. But at least we have the GIS context information in a format which is known for the engineers. It is IFC and DXF. It's not GIS at the moment. So after that, we assume that he downloaded also the BIM template. So as we said, we have BIM template for different for 3 software at the moment. And if we take, for example, Revit, we will see that he has a guideline, the template itself, shared parameter, IFC parameter mapping, and the property set to be sure that the information will be included in the IFC file are the information we are asking for. If we look at the BIM standard itself, maybe no time to explain it, how to say, like in some details now, but at least I will just show how the building, the information requirement is defined at the moment. So we'll have as BIM standard, the document itself. It's not that very huge standard at the moment because we focus only on the building permit. We have some name convention for everything. We have, as I said, the terminology alignment with the ISO, and then we have LOD's requirement. And what is maybe most interesting for you to see the classification system, which we are assuming that it will be used. Now we are using Uniclass, and we are open or started by implementing OmniClass as well. So we would like to have a different classification system to be allowed inside one model. And we have in the BIM standard some guideline about the naming convention for building, for floors, for even element inside the model. And if we look at our requirement of information, at the moment we are still using Excel file. We plan maybe to put it online or on the cloud or using a better system. But as you can assume now that for every kind of or category of the object, this is the most of the objects which are supported at the moment, you will get a list for the attribute, which should be included, the minimum information which should be assigned to different elements like beams, columns, covering, ducting, doors, fans, etc. And for each of these rules, we are putting some further information, like where this information comes from. For if this information, if it is coming from the buildingSMART predefined standard, so it will be recognized by bset underscore and by the standard name of that property set. In some cases, we are assuming or adding some additional attribute because they are not existing yet in the BIM standard, or maybe they are dealing with some locality or some like special cases here in Emirat or in Dubai. And even more, we show where and why this attribute is important and where it should be used. And this information are reflected back in the shared parameter files or what is similar in other software. And in this case, the consultant has a clear idea which information should be included and why they should be included. And furthermore, if we go back to the platform, because I assume you are maybe more interested to see the platform in action. So here he uploaded an architect model. Of course, he can upload other model. He can upload different version. We can compare different version, etc. We can merge all model together. So this is something I assume it's not that complete. For this building, until it uploads here, I will show the aspects for that. We are not only focusing actually on the automated code checking. We also focusing on the integration with GIS. So here we see, for example, it's now possible to do a visual check for the setback rules. So all rules from the Dubai code, like according to some criteria, what should be the minimum setbacks from all areas, like if you have a road or building or according to the neighborhood building. So a lot of rules can be here visually checked. And we see here that all of this information coming from the BIM model itself. So here we can get a list of all floors, the total floor area, facilities, circulations, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. All this information previously have been provided manually by the consultant. It was a tedious and error-borne process. And there are here also some very complex calculations, which are maybe not feasible that easy. But when we think about rules for parking, to decide how many parking place you need for a hotel or a mall or a school, whatever. So there are some very complex rules how you calculate them. So here we are doing some complex calculation in order to decide what is the number of proposed and the number of required parking or waste like garbage bins or other things. So in the future, we will add more rules. We will add more calculations to improve the extraction of information from the BIM model. So if we go back here to the online viewer, here we are using also open source, the XBIM online viewer, with some, of course, modification and improvement. And I will not go through how to use the viewer. It almost use the same common features in all models. So I will focus usually mostly on the checking the results. So actually here I assigned a lot of rules to this model. So the reviewer and the consultant, he can choose the category of which rule he would like to check. So as we see here, we have accessibility, architect, etc. And this category are coming actually or are the same like from the building code, Dubai building code, which you can even access online if you follow the bimdubai.ae. So we can see here he can choose which rule he would like to check. So I just remove the villas here, and then he got the result for every rule, which element have passed, which element failed, and he can even zoom in, and he can at the end export the result of these violations or problem in BIM collaboration format to import this information to back to Revit or any other software and try to solve them. If we would like to talk about the level of complexity in our rules at the moment, so we are using a kind of GIS BIM integrated database approach, let's call it something like that. So when we look at the rules themselves, we will see that we have usually 4 types of rules. The attribute rules like semantic information, alphanumerical, ratio rules if you want to decide to compare 2 values with each other, like the windows area in a kitchen with the kitchen area itself. Geometry rules if you would like to check some simple geometry relationship like interaction included in within distance and etc. And for IT people or advanced users, we have SQL rules. So actually, this is the kind of rules which we are at moment implementing, and it cover maybe like 50-60% of most of the rules. We don't deal at moment with rules which need sense of engineering or it need a lot of topological analysis of the model or how to say linking BIM information with or with other information coming from other domain. What is interesting here that the platform should be easy to be used by the building permit engineer, by the end users, and even the rules is done as an open box or white box. We are not using any commercial software or something close. So this means even for the consultant and for the building permit engineer, at moment it's possible to click on any rule and to see how this rule is supposed to work. So if I choose like, I don't know, any rule related to doors, let me try something with doors. So we will see here that this rule coming from which page, from which category, that we are looking for an object from IFC door as a class. We are looking for which attribute, which values. So we have a kind of visual designer which allow the non-technical users to understand and after some training to be able to correct or modify and add rules by themselves. These rules at the end will be converted to some very complex at moment, sometimes queries, SQL queries. And at the end, the BIM information are saved in a GIS database. So it is an SQL database, but at the same time, we are even saving the geometry. So we are using Postgres at the moment. So we can do queries including information and geometry as I said Maybe just to show here the collaboration aspect, as we said, beside checking the result and checking and sending the result and notifying the consultant, all this what I explained, we have some basic functions like making dimension and creating issues. So if we look at our project here, this traditional or this typical project, let me just try to open it. So this with this I will finish the live demo.
Okay.
So we can see here, for example, for the issue management, that any party included in the project can create issues. It can replay, he can close the issues. And after finalizing the building permit of the building, the super admin or the BIM supervisor can convert the permitted BIM model to a GIS database. I cannot show this very easily live. That's why I'll switch back to the slides where I put some pictures just to give you an idea how this works. So this is basically the result of converting a BIM model to GIS. So this is ArcGIS from Esri, and this is the GIS feature layer. So we are converting the basic element in the IFC model to GIS feature layers. And then we have developed a 3D building GIS data model where we can use this 2D information to create a simplified 3D building shape, and we importing then all this BIM model coming from different resources, CAD and BIM and laser scan, etc., all of them using the same GIS data model to build our Dubai digital twin. So I don't know, maybe I have it open somewhere. So I think I have it here open. So this we see, this is the GIS center where I work. And this information coming from, I'm not sure if BIM or CAD, but the same, they are using the same GIS data model. And we can see here even, you can do, so we here, even if you would like to see where I work, I try quickly. So this is the place where I work. Unfortunately, we have here open spaces. So that's why sometimes it's very noisy. So I think I work here. So this is my table. So we are trying now, as I said, to move toward digital twin, applying all of these things in Dubai here platform for the digital twin. The last things I would like to show, actually, I think I showed this. I showed this quickly. And this was, for example, again, an example for the how the rules work. Sorry. So I think it was here. So I think I explained it, but as we see here, it's very easy to know how this platform work or how the checking engine work. If now we think about how it will develop in the future to conclude the presentation, of course, we are now working to extend the BIM standard to add more use cases and to be extended not only on the building permit phase, but for other project life cycle. We are extending the rules to include all other NOCs like electric, water, civil defense. So we are communicating and working with them. We are working on pilot project planned and executed by Dubai municipality and other government or private sector to evaluate the platform and test it and to promote BIM further. In the next phase, we will work on enhancing the implementation of the checking engine by applying advanced checking method like geometry-based, graph data-based, artificial intelligence or machine learning, some aspect which can also help by checking advanced rules like voxeling the model or using topology analysis, etc. And we would like to work to improve the BIM to GIS integration. As I showed you, we're still doing our first step by GIS to BIM. And we are moving also toward Open BIM, Open GIS integration. So we would like to have an IFC to CTGML converter beside the IFC to Esri or to closed GIS. So I hope that I didn't take too much time, that we still have some time for question.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was all very interesting, and thank you for being brave enough to do a live demonstration, which I think
Yeah,
is
usually it does nothing everywhere. Not everything work.
well. That's so. I think that's really exciting to see. And as I say, great to see a live demonstration, which helps us believe and so on. I'll just go back to my slides, if I may, and highlight what I think we've just seen here. That if I can find the right slide, please. That from Japan, we've seen some piloting of some processes with some long-term ambitions, but certainly in the level of code checking. From Portugal, we've seen a research project which had some very interesting aims about how people will use it, and the basis of how the development will be open source and free to use and so on. And we've seen from Dubai some also code checking, of course, but an implementation. And I got the impression that it was live, so I just want to check that with Ali. But I think it's really exciting to see 3 implementations that are heading towards the top corner of our cube, where we want to see full implementation of code checking and so on. So that's I may have got that wrong, and if I've miscategorized you, I'm happy to be corrected. But I think the what I'd like to do now is just turn to the questions. Well, first of all, thank the presenters, and then turn to the questions and comments, and just share them with you. Edgar Westerhoven has remarked that officers need to be able to interact with the BIM model to choose their filters, to understand what they're looking at, rather than the design consultants having to present every version of the information that they might want. And I think that's important. There are free BIM viewers which will do that, IFC viewers, and then you can have specific viewers that are driven by regulatory concerns. And I thought it was very interesting that Dubai was generating a lot of the technical reports or tables to back up the decision-making evidence. So that was nice. Stefan thinks he saw a discrepancy between the 3D model and the GIS tiles below. I'm sure that we will make due allowance for the fact that it was a demonstration, and hopefully that we can get the accuracy we need. Ali, are there any issues with accuracy between BIM and GIS?
Actually, because maybe maybe the building I showed in the live demo is different from the GIS model, or the GIS center is not the same like what I show. But yes, we still have some problem, because at some point, if we want to automatically, for example, generate the building footprint. So in this case, we are taking a lot of element in the IFC model, and there we are applying some 2D geometric and mathematic algorithm to automatically join and merge all these elements. So yes, we still have some difficulties by clean generating of, for example, building floor, geometry, footprint, unit footprint, and the building footprint. For singular element, we got exact how to say representation of the element, because at the end we are converting the geometry in IFC to a 3D mesh, and then we can either keep it as a 3D, or we would like for the digital twin to convert it back to 2D. And sometimes there are some abnormality or some complexity in this algorithm. But in general, we can say like the quality of this BIM model are very pretty well, and they are fitting the objective of them.
Okay. I think that's all the comments and questions. If anyone in the audience has questions, really keen that you type them in, so we can have this conversation. I think if I could ask one question of each of the speakers, it's how are you each capturing the rules? How are you making sure that the rules that you're checking are the ones that are in the regulations? We saw in the Dubai case that they are being converted into SQL statements from panels. That's part of the answer. But perhaps if I could turn to Masaki first and just say, how are you capturing the rules in the two case studies?
Sorry. In the two reference case, it's a difference. So the Siemens case is then it's suitable for next questions. So making VPL, so we have to some properties for introduced to VPL logics. So we try to the regulational terms such as gross floor area and so on. So we convert to the mean to method readable first. It's the way to raise approach, I think. So the natural language convert to semi method readable meaning. So making some varies, so making some drop to calculation logics.
Yeah, that's interesting. So VPL, Visual Programming Languages, is the
yes
is a toolkit which tries to make it easier for or make it clearer how regulations are being represented. And so on. So yes, Masaki is very kind to mention that I've been working on ways of capturing from the text to prep the systems. If I turn to the Portugal example, is there anything you'd like to say about how you're capturing the rules?
Yeah, this was a relatively straightforward, but took a lot of work process. We just went one by one and analyzed them. So it was no natural language processing. We were actually having discussions about them one by one with municipalities. There were so many hidden meanings, so many context-related things in the regulations, the way they were made. It just makes them very, very hard to digitize or digitalize in this way. So what we believe in is there will be a further generation of regulations that needs to be drafted with attention to the fact that they will be captured by digital machines, as we would say, or bots. But for the time being, what we are trying to do is for each and every single of the parts of the regulation that we think are codifiable in a machine, we are turning them into their pieces and bits of verifiable things. So we classify this is a distance thing, regulation. So let's relate the two aspects that are to be related by a minimum or maximum distance and connect them to the database. But in the end, what we intend to do is something similar to what has been shown by the Dubai municipality, which is have the relations written in a high-level code where someone that doesn't really know how to program can have access to a set of basic tools where they can compile their new regulations. But we are not going too much or anything at all into the natural language processing business. We just find it very, very very challenging, very hard, and we are trying to keep practical on things we can do in the relatively short term. Thanks.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Sorry. My work is on avoiding natural language processing, but capturing the expertise of the experts from the text, getting them to comment on the text, and that's enough. Yeah, Ali, is there anything you want to add about how you capture the rules? We saw the templates.
Yes, technically, I think it's easy to explain. Some rules are feasible, which you see in the list, and they are converted at the end to SQL and so on. But for us, what I would like to say, actually, how we choose the rules, this is the complex problem, because at the end we are handling hundred if and thousand of rules if we would like to consider everything. So actually we include the business partners who decide the priority, and we are using the hanging low fruit concept. So we start by the rules which save manual time and is easy to implement, and then and repeated more than others. So we have some criteria how to choose the rules. But technically, in the moment, we are using database-based rules, and we think in the future to use more algorithm and some rules which are not feasible, which are including, for example, calculation. So they are done hard-coded to sum up areas or to find the floor area ratio and so on. If you allow me just, Nick, to correct my answer to Stefan, I didn't notice that I was disconnected for a few seconds. So actually, yes, now I got what he means. He means why the building is not exactly like the GIS tiles in the on the map. Actually, I look at it because the satellite images are coming from not from a vertical point. So the roof of the building is swept a little bit or swept a little bit. That's why, just for correction.
That's a very good answer. We need to correct the satellites.
Yes.
So good. Yeah. And then Edgar Westerhoven has asked a question about looking at other regulatory environments, financial sector, and so on. I think yes, we do tend to look inwards in the built environment sector, in our sector. And it is interesting to, I've been doing some work with the financial regulators. And it's interesting that they have very similar problems. And about getting the information in a checkable form and making a level playing field for large financial organizations and small ones, and so on. I think the we have a particular advantage in that we try and test proposals, frozen building models, whereas financial regulators are trying to do something continuously across time, and so on. So they have a different data set, but and so on. And another question from Edgar: has anyone looked at any generic requirements applications like IBM Doors is a requirements capture tool, but has anyone seen any parallels with these generic tools?
Actually, I didn't get really what the question is about. I mean, if we look like regulation related to doors or some, what do you think he means by the question? In our database, on our rule set, even I showed on the screen the long list of attribute for doors. So actually, doors at the moment has the most number of rules.
No, I think
because,
Doors is a commercial product. It's the name of an IBM.
Okay, for ontology or something like that.
Well, it's a requirements management tool,
Okay,
which
sorry.
may be significant within municipalities who have a process that they need to go through. But it's interesting that to date, well, all three solutions we've seen today have not used general purpose rule engines.
No, we don't use ontology. As I said, maybe we are thinking to use a graph database. So it is something similar that when we convert the IFC model to a graph database, so we have all relationship inside the graph database. So we don't have, but using like reasoning using ontology and looking at the facts and so on, we didn't reach this point yet. It is maybe represented many times in the linked data group and in the academic research, but we are having a kind of practical approach here.
Yes, absolutely. And I think particularly with regulatory tasks, the challenge with linked data is to freeze it, to say that this is what we are going to test against. The idea of the submission is very important in a regulatory process. And so how linked data would actually affect that if some of the data was outside the control of the regulator and so on. So another comment that whatever the regulatory process is, clients also have requirements, and we need to and certainly the regulatory room has always been said that it's about regulations, requirements, and recommendations to actually make sure that the technology that's coming through here can also be applied to satisfy client requirements and expectations, but also third-party expectations like environmental grading schemes and so on. So whilst the topic today has definitely been regulatory, anything that works here will also help improve the other aspects of the built environment. But yes, I think just to conclude, I think Edgar's pointed us back to the level of trust. And I think perhaps just to wrap up the conversation, can I ask each of you to talk about how you're going to manufacture trust, or sorry, generate trust, I think is the right phrase, so that these systems can be welcomed. So Masaki, is there anything you'd like to say about how you're going to break down the disbelief, you called it?
We understand to break through the no belief, so we have to get the trust to the data authenticity. So the comment says something like the doors services. So some like blockchain and so on in the describe the chat. So we need to make again the trustworthy. So some techniques need to implement the BIM certification in Japan. So we have to the data authenticity and long-term readability is essential requirement, I think.
Okay, and sorry, I've lost my thought here. I took some screenshots of some thoughts here. Miguel, do you want to say anything about trust? How to generate trust?
Oh, that's a very complicated one.
Yeah.
But definitely the trusting the system that you are engaging to would be, at least I'm speaking from the point of view of our need to engage people to something that will be voluntary. So submitting in BIM in this case would be voluntary, and engaging the trust that this will happen more positively, that you're just not buying into new problems. I think this is something that I'm wondering a lot. Also in design, this is the same situation. The designer, by using BIM, will just run into more problems than he used to. I can say that because I have worked as a designer before. So at the end of the day, you just have to trust the entire process. But this comes into a question of literacy. Many people do not have enough literacy on the subject, so that they cannot trust the progress. So the process. So yeah, it's really hard. Sorry, no answer, but just some thoughts.
Okay.
Thanks.
Right. Okay. And
Okay.
Ali,
Yes, me either. I have no one answer, but I think I believe at the end people they believe in what they see. So I mean, if we're talking about the code checking, if they use it and they see the result visually and it's very simple to be used and they can easily change the parameter, they can easily get involved in the process. I mean, we have to stop thinking about the regulator as a client for us who are trying to enforce the automated code compliance check. We should get them involved, like by education, by training. So when they start to feel how they can automate themselves some of their manual tasks, which usually boring and not that fun, and they can focus on something more. But this is not only to think about the regulators. If we think about the end user, like consultant, to trust our system, we have to keep our GIS data updated. It make no sense if you got the GIS data from Dubai municipality and you start to design something, and then you go to the construction site and you see that the data is not updated. And we have to also enforce some KPIs. This is how we work here. We have KPIs for everything. So we have KPI for what time we can save, what is the cost, what is the manual work, and then we have to monitor this KPI. To be also honest, we cannot say like the PIM will save 50% of the cost and the time if we cannot prove it. So at the end, as I said, one of our issues we are working now to have a pilot project where we can really compare with BIM, without BIM, with automated code checking, with manual work, with GIS integration, without GIS integration, to measure the impact of enforcing all these systems and approaches compared to the traditional way. So maybe, I don't know, and keeping
Yeah.
things simple, of course.
yes. One last question from Douglas Brito. That just to check. Is the Dubai system live to applicants now?
Yes, it's live. It is all. We are
Yep.
now in the testing and evaluation phase. It's online.
Yeah.
It's in production mode. Yes. So
Good.
what is feeling only the BIM mandate to be enforced.
Okay, so that's excellent. I mean, I think that's really exciting that we've seen three systems taking different approaches, all based on buildingSMART open standards, and I think that's been an important message. I'd like to just mention that the regulatory room does have the regulatory information requirements project, and it would be really great if these three projects could contribute their property requirements into the work stream, which will update the IFC official schema and the data dictionary and so on.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'd also like to thank the speakers and the audience for their questions and their things, and to say it's been a brilliant session, really interesting, really important, I think, in making it real for people. And I look forward to as many of you as possible engaging with the regulatory room and the discussions that we're having going forward. So, and thank you to buildingSMART International for the hosting. So,
Thank you,
excellent,
Nikolai,
and thank
for
you very
the
much.
great moderation from your side as well.
Pleasure.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all. Bye bye. Have a nice day.